Dr. Ji-won Kim was having a quiet morning in her lab when the emergency alarm started screaming through the research ship, Harmony's Edge, she had been studying. Samples from their last planetary survey when read, lights began flashing everywhere. The sound made her heart race as she ran toward the main corridor. Captain Minho Park's voice echoed through the ship's speakers. All senior staff to the bridge immediately. We have an unknown contact approaching our vessel. Ji-won dropped her work and rushed to the bridge. When she arrived, she found the entire command crew staring at the main viewing screen with confused expressions. What they saw made no sense at all. A small creature was flying through open space without any kind of protective suit or ship. It moved with grace and purpose, its wings beating steadily as it approached their vessel. The creature looked like something from an old Earth fairy tale, a dragon no bigger than a house cat. "How is that thing alive out there?" asked engineer Tae-hyun Choi. "There's no atmosphere, no heat, nothing but empty space." Communications officer Hee-won Nam looked up from her station. "Captain, it's trying to communicate with us. The translation matrix is picking up what sounds like speech. Put it through," Captain Park ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was clear and melodic, but filled with desperate urgency. "Please, great ship of the star-traveling humans, I must speak with you. My mother is dying and you are my only hope." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at each other in shock. Dragons were supposed to be myths, stories told to children, yet here was one speaking to them in perfect galactic standard language. "This has to be some kind of trick," whispered Dr. Somin Lee, the ship's chief medical officer. "Dragons don't exist." But Ji-won was already moving toward the airlock controls. Something about the creature's voice touched her heart. The desperation was real, and so was the pain. "We need to bring it aboard," she said firmly. Captain Park hesitated. "Ji-won, we don't know anything about this creature. It could be dangerous." "It's asking for help," Ji-won replied. "Isn't that what we do out here? Help those who need it?" The captain thought for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. But full quarantine procedures. We bring it to the isolated medical bay." As they prepared the special airlock, Ji-won watched the small dragon through the viewing port. Its scales shimmered with colors that seemed to change from moment to moment, deep green shifting to bright gold, then to silver like starlight. Its eyes were the most striking feature, ancient and intelligent beyond anything she had ever seen. The airlock cycled through its sequence, and the dragon flew inside with careful, controlled movements. When the inner door opened, it landed gracefully on the examination table in the medical bay. Up close, it was even more magnificent than it had appeared on the screen. "Thank you," the dragon said, its voice now soft with relief. "I am called Hanul. I have traveled far to find you." Dr. Lee stepped forward with her medical scanner but kept a safe distance. "What exactly are you?" Hanul's head tilted slightly. "I am what your people call a dragon, though we prefer the term ancient ones. We have existed among the stars for many thousands of your years." Ji-won knelt down to be at eye level with the creature. "You said your mother is dying. Tell us what's wrong." The small dragon's eyes filled with sadness that seemed deeper than oceans. 3 cycles of your moon ago, my mother encountered a dark energy storm while traveling the old paths between stars. The storm carried poison from the edge of space itself. Now that poison spreads through her body, destroying everything it touches. "Dark energy storms are theoretical," said Tae-hyun. "We've never actually confirmed they exist." "Your science has much to learn," Hanul replied without any insult in his voice. "The storms exist at the boundaries of what you call known space. They carry fragments of corrupted matter that can unmake the very foundation of living things." Captain Park crossed his arms. "Why come to us? Surely there are more advanced civilizations that could help." Hanul's wings drooped. "I have tried 17 different star systems. The healers of Altair said the condition was impossible to treat. The bioarchitects of the Andorian worlds claimed my mother's essence was too damaged to save. The crystal surgeons of Vega refused to even attempt a cure." "Then why do you think we can help?" asked Dr. Lee. The dragon's eyes brightened for the first time since his arrival. "Because an old friend of my mother told me stories about humans. He said your people see solutions where others see only problems. He said you make the impossible become possible through determination and clever thinking." Ji-won felt her scientific curiosity stirring. "Who is this friend?" "We call him the Wanderer. He has watched your species grow from cave dwellers to star travelers. He speaks of humans with great respect, though he also fears your potential power. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had heard rumors of an ancient being that observed younger species, but no one had ever confirmed such stories. "Tell us more about your mother's condition," Jiwon said gently. Hanil took a deep breath. The dark energy is unweaving her very existence. Each day she becomes less solid, less real. The corruption spreads like a disease, but it attacks not just her body, but the quantum foundations of her being. Where it touches, the normal laws of physics begin to break down. Dr. Lee's scanner was beeping frantically as it tried to analyze Hanul's physiology. "I'm getting readings that don't make sense. This creature's cellular structure is unlike anything in our databases. We ancient ones exist partially outside your normal dimension," Hanul explained. "We can manipulate the fundamental forces that hold reality together. But that same nature makes us vulnerable to certain types of quantum corruption." Jiwon's mind was racing. "How long does she have?" "Days, perhaps hours. She has entered what we call the deep sleep, to slow the corruption's spread. But even that will not save her for much longer." Captain Park studied the small dragon carefully. "What makes you think we can succeed where 17 other civilizations have failed?" Hanul looked directly at each of them in turn. "Because humans do not accept that anything is truly impossible. The Wanderer told me that your species excels at finding new ways to approach old problems. You combine knowledge with intuition in ways that older, more rigid civilizations cannot. This could be incredibly dangerous," Dr. Lee warned. "We're talking about quantum-level medical procedures on a being whose biology we don't understand." "I know the risks," Hanul replied. "But my mother is the last of the great skyweavers. When she dies, knowledge that has existed since before your star was born will die with her. The secret paths between distant worlds, the hidden harmonies that keep galaxies stable, the wisdom of ages. All of it will be lost forever." Jiwon felt the weight of that responsibility settling on her shoulders. "Where is your mother now?" "She rests in the heart of the Wandering Garden, our people's traveling city. It moves along the hidden paths between stars, never staying in one place for long. I can guide you there, but the journey will take several of your days." Captain Park was quiet for a long moment, considering all the implications. Finally, he spoke. "Dr. Kim, what's your assessment?" Jiwon looked at the small dragon, then at her colleagues. Everything about this situation defied logic and scientific understanding. Yet something deep in her heart told her this was exactly the kind of challenge humans were meant to face. "I think we have to try," she said finally. "If there's even a chance we can help, we have to take it." The captain nodded slowly. "Very well. Hanel, you'll stay in the medical bay for now. We'll need to run more tests and prepare for this journey. But I want you to know, if we do this, we're committing fully. Humans don't give up once we've decided to help." For the first time since arriving, Hanul smiled. It was the expression of pure hope and gratitude that touched everyone in the room. "Thank you," he said simply. "My mother always said that the young races would one day teach the ancient ones new ways to see the universe. Perhaps that day has finally come." As the crew began preparations for their impossible mission, none of them could have imagined how much their understanding of the universe was about to change. They were about to embark on a journey that would challenge everything they thought they knew about medicine, physics, and the true potential of human determination. The next morning, Dr. Jiwon Kim found Hanul sitting quietly in the medical bay, staring out the viewport at the stars rushing past. The small dragon had not moved from his spot on the examination table since the night before. His scales looked duller than they had when he first arrived, and Jiwon could see the worry weighing heavily on his small shoulders. "Good morning, Hanul," she said softly as she entered the room. "How are you feeling?" The dragon turned his ancient eyes toward her. "I am grateful for your kindness, Dr. Kim, but I cannot stop thinking about my mother. Every moment we travel, she grows weaker." Jiwon pulled up a chair beside the examination table. Over the past day, she had been reading everything the ship's computer had about dragon mythology, from Earth's history. None of it prepared her for meeting a real one. "Tell me more about your people. I want to understand what we're dealing with." Hanul's expression brightened slightly. "What would you like to know? How long have your people existed? How many of you are there?" The small dragon settled more comfortably on the table. "The ancient ones have existed since the first stars began to burn. We watched galaxies form and grow old. We guided young species as they learned to reach for the stars. There are not many of us left now. Perhaps a few hundred scattered across all of known space. Jiwon felt a chill at those words. Only a few hundred? What happened to the rest? Time, Hanul said simply. We live for many thousands of years, but we are not immortal. And we do not reproduce often. My mother has lived for 12,000 of your years. I am barely 300, still considered very young among our kind. The door to the medical bay slid open, and Dr. Somin Lee entered, carrying her latest scanning equipment. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said. I wanted to run a few more tests if Hanul doesn't mind. I do not mind, the dragon replied. I understand you must learn about my nature if you hope to help my mother. As Dr. Lee began her scans, Hanul continued talking. My mother is special even among the ancient ones. She is a great skyweaver, one of only 3 left in all the universe. The skyweavers maintain the hidden paths between distant stars. Without them, travel across the galaxy would take hundreds of times longer. These hidden paths, Jiwon said, are they like hyperspace lanes? Hanul shook his head. Your hyperspace technology forces a way through normal space using brute energy. The celestial paths, as we call them, exist naturally in the spaces between dimensions. They connect distant points without the violent tearing that hyperspace creates. Dr. Lee looked up from her scanner with amazement. These readings are incredible. Hanul's cellular structure exists in at least 4 dimensions simultaneously. No wonder our equipment has trouble analyzing him. That is why the dark energy corruption is so dangerous to us, Hanul explained. It attacks the quantum foundations that allow us to exist across multiple dimensions. When it spreads, we become less real, less able to maintain our connection to normal space. Captain Minho Park entered the medical bay, followed by Engineer Taehyun Choi. We're making good time toward the coordinates you provided, the captain told Hanul. But I have to ask, how do we know we can trust you? This could all be an elaborate trap. Hanul's scales shifted to a deeper blue color, which Jiwon was learning indicated sadness or hurt feelings. I understand your suspicion, Captain, but I swear by the light of the first star that everything I have told you is true. If you wish proof of my sincerity, I offer this. The small dragon extended one wing and a single scale fell onto the examination table. The moment it separated from his body, it began to glow with soft golden light. A dragon's scale given freely carries a binding oath, Hanul said quietly. If I have lied to you in any way, the scale will turn black and crumble to dust. If my words are true, it will continue to shine until my mother is healed or dies. Everyone in the room stared at the glowing scale. It pulsed gently with warm light, beautiful and somehow reassuring. Taehyun stepped closer to examine it. The energy output is incredible for something so small. How is this possible? We ancient ones are connected to the fundamental forces of the universe, Hanul replied. What you see as magic is simply our natural ability to manipulate quantum fields and dimensional barriers. Dr. Lee's scanner suddenly started beeping rapidly. I'm detecting massive energy signatures ahead. Something very large. Communications Officer Haiwan Nam's voice came through the intercom. Captain, you need to see this. We're approaching something that shouldn't be possible. The group hurried to the bridge, with Jiwon carrying Hanul carefully in her arms. When they arrived, the main viewing screen showed something that made everyone stop and stare in wonder. Floating in space before them was a city unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Crystalline towers reached up toward the stars, connected by bridges of pure light. Gardens hung suspended in the void between buildings, filled with plants that glowed with their own inner radiance. Streams of liquid starlight flowed along impossible pathways that curved through empty space. The entire structure was contained within a massive transparent bubble that seemed to be made of solidified space itself. The city was easily the size of a small moon, yet it moved through the cosmos with the grace of a living creature. Welcome to the heart of the wandering garden, Hanul said softly. My home. Captain Park's mouth hung open. How is this possible? The energy requirements alone would be astronomical. The city is not built with your kind of technology, Hanul explained. It is grown from the intersection of will and cosmic law. The ancient ones learned long ago to work with the universe rather than against it. As they drew closer, they could see other dragons moving through the city. Some were small like Hanul, while others were massive creatures whose wingspan could have covered several city blocks. But even from a distance, there was something subdued about their movements, a sense of sadness that hung over the entire place. Your people know about your mother's condition, Jiwon observed. Hanul nodded sadly. When a great skyweaver begins to fade, all of creation feels the loss. The very fabric of space becomes less stable. That is why so many have tried and failed to heal her. The corruption that destroys her also threatens the cosmic balance she helps maintain. Dr. Lee was studying the energy readings from the city. The quantum signatures are completely unlike anything in our databases. It's as if the entire structure exists in a state of controlled impossibility. To us, nothing is impossible if it serves the greater harmony, Anil replied. But we have grown perhaps too careful, too set in our ancient ways. That is why the Wanderer spoke so highly of humans. You bring fresh perspectives to old problems. The ship began its approach to the city's docking area. Instead of mechanical clamps and airlocks, tendrils of crystallized light reached out to gently embrace their vessel and guide it into a berth. The Council of Elders is waiting to meet you, Anil said, as the docking procedure completed. They are grateful but not hopeful. Too many healers have tried and failed. Some of them believe my mother's time has simply come. What do you believe? Asked Jiwan. Hanul's scales brightened to their original golden color. I believe that the universe brought you to us for a reason. The Wanderer always said that humans possess something special, a refusal to accept defeat even when victory seems impossible. As they prepared to leave the ship and enter the Dragon City, Jiwan felt the weight of expectation settling on her shoulders. An entire civilization was counting on them to achieve what 17 other advanced species had failed to accomplish. But looking at Hanul's hopeful expression, she felt something stirring in her heart that had nothing to do with science or logic. It was the same stubborn determination that had carried humanity from caves to starships, the same refusal to give up that defined their species. Let's go meet your people, she said firmly, and let's see what impossible things we can make possible today. The dragon scale in Dr. Lee's medical kit continued to glow with steady, warm light as they stepped through the airlock into a world beyond human imagination. Dr. Jiwon Kim stepped through the airlock into the most beautiful place she had ever seen. The air itself seemed to sparkle with tiny points of light, and she could smell something that reminded her of spring rain mixed with distant starlight. The gravity felt normal, but everything else was like walking into a dream. Waiting for them was a group of dragons that took Jiwon's breath away. Each one was magnificent in its own way. Their scales displayed colors that had no names in any human language. Some were deep purple shot through with silver threads. Others gleamed like molten copper or shimmered with the blue-green of ocean depths. An elder dragon with scales like polished bronze stepped forward. He was much larger than Hanul, easily the size of a small aircraft, but his movements were graceful and careful around the tiny humans. Captain Minho Park bowed respectfully. We're honored to be here, Elder Daesung. We want to help however we can. Daesung's large eyes studied each of the humans carefully. 17 civilizations have tried to save Mirai. The crystalline surgeons of Vega worked for 7 days straight. The bioarchitects of Andor brought their most advanced healing machines. The quantum healers of Altair attempted to rebuild her cellular structure from pure energy. All failed. What exactly is wrong with her? Dr. Somin Lee asked, clutching her medical scanner. Come, Daesung said sadly. It is better if you see for yourself. As they walked through the city, Jiwan marveled at everything around her. Trees grew from platforms of crystallized energy, their leaves shimmering with contained starlight. Buildings seemed to breathe, their walls shifting gently as if responding to the emotions of those inside. Fountains of liquid light cascaded upward, defying gravity to create beautiful sculptures that changed shape as they watched. Other dragons moved through the city, but Jiwan noticed that all of them seemed subdued. Even the youngest ones flew with less energy than she would have expected. The entire place felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. How many of your people live here? Asked Engineer Taehyun Choi, staring up at the impossible architecture. Nearly 200, Daesung replied. More than half of all the ancient ones remaining in the universe. We came here when Mirai fell ill, hoping our combined presence might somehow strengthen her, but the corruption spreads regardless of our efforts. They approached the center of the city, where a tower of pure crystal reached toward the stars. The tower was so tall that its top disappeared into the glowing dome that protected the city. As they got closer, Jiwan could feel something powerful emanating from within it. She rests at the heart of our home, Hanul said quietly, in the chamber of eternal light, where the first ancient ones meditated on the mysteries of existence. The entrance to the tower was guarded by two enormous dragons whose scales looked like living galaxies. They nodded respectfully to Daesung and stepped aside to let the group pass. Inside, the tower was even more impressive than the outside. Spiraling ramps of solid light led upward through a space that seemed larger than the tower's exterior should have allowed. The walls were covered with patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if they contained too much meaning for human minds to process. "Those are the memory crystals," Hanul explained, noticing Jiwan's fascination. "They contain the history of the universe from its birth until now. Every important event, every moment of beauty or tragedy is preserved here." As they climbed higher, the air grew thicker with power. Jiwan's skin tingled, and she could feel something ancient and vast pressing against the edges of her consciousness. Dr. Li's scanner was beeping frantically, trying to make sense of readings that defied all known physics. Finally, they reached the top of the tower. The Chamber of Eternal Light was a spherical room with walls of transparent crystal that looked out on all the stars in the sky. At the center, suspended in a bed of crystallized moonbeams, lay the most magnificent creature Jiwan had ever imagined. Mirai was enormous. Even lying down, she was easily 100 meters from nose to tail. But her size was not what took Jiwan's breath away. It was the sense of presence that filled the chamber, the feeling of standing before something truly ancient and wise. The great Skyweaver's scales had once been brilliant silver, according to what Hanul had told them. Now they were fading, showing patches of disturbing darkness that seemed to eat light itself. The dark areas pulsed with sickly energy, and around them the air itself looked unstable, as if reality was becoming uncertain. "The corruption," Dr. Li whispered, her voice filled with awe and horror. Even unconscious, Mirai radiated an aura of wisdom and compassion that made Jiwan want to weep. But the dark patches spreading across her magnificent form told a story of something fundamentally wrong. Where the corruption touched, the laws of physics seemed to bend and twist in ways that hurt to perceive. "She entered the deep sleep 3 days ago," Daesung said quietly. "It is the body's final defense against total dissolution. Her consciousness retreats to the deepest levels while her life force battles the spreading darkness. But even this cannot hold it back much longer." Jiwan stepped closer, fighting the urge to reach out and touch the dying dragon. "How much time does she have?" "Hours, perhaps a day at most," another elder dragon said from behind them. This one had scales like polished obsidian, and eyes that held the depth of black holes. "I am Myungsu, keeper of the healing arts. I have watched over Mirai since the corruption began. Each hour that passes, she becomes less solid, less connected to our reality." Dr. Li was moving around the chamber with her scanner, taking readings from every angle. The energy patterns are completely chaotic. It's like the dark matter is trying to exist in the same space as normal matter, and they're destroying each other in the process. "That is exactly what is happening," Myungsu confirmed. The dark energy storm that struck Mirai carried fragments of matter from beyond the edge of known space. This alien matter follows different physical laws than the matter in our universe. When the two try to occupy the same space, reality itself begins to break down. Captain Park studied the readings on Dr. Li's scanner. "Is there any pattern to the corruption? Any way to predict how it spreads?" "We have mapped its progress carefully," Daesung replied. "But the pattern makes no sense. Sometimes it spreads quickly, sometimes slowly. Sometimes it stops for hours, then suddenly jumps to a completely different area of her body." Hanul flew up to land gently on his mother's great head, between her closed eyes. "She was the first ancient one to welcome humans when your explorers reached the edge of our territory," he said softly. "She believed your species had a destiny among the stars that even we could not foresee." Jiwan felt tears forming in her eyes as she watched the small dragon nuzzle against his mother's scales. The love between them was obvious, and the thought of losing something so ancient and wise seemed unbearable. "What have the other healers tried?" Taehyun asked. Myungsu's expression grew grim. "Everything we could think of. Energy transfusions to strengthen her life force. Quantum surgery to remove the corrupted areas. Dimensional phasing to separate the alien matter from her normal cells. Temporal healing to reverse the damage. Nothing has worked. The corruption adapts to whatever we try," Daesung added. "It learns from our attempts and becomes stronger. Some of the elders believe it is not just alien matter, but alien intelligence, something that thinks and plans and fights back." Dr. Li looked up from her scanner with worry in her eyes. If that's true, then we're not just dealing with a medical condition. We're dealing with an invasion at the cellular level. The chamber fell silent except for the soft sound of Mirai's breathing. Each breath seemed to take enormous effort, and G1 could see the dark patches pulsing faster with each exhale. "Why do you think we can succeed where so many others have failed?" she asked finally. It was Hanul who answered, his voice filled with desperate hope. "Because humans see the universe differently than we do. The ancient ones have existed for so long that we sometimes forget how to think in new ways. Other species have their own limitations, their own rigid approaches to problems." He looked directly at G1 with his ancient, intelligent eyes. "But humans refuse to accept that anything is truly impossible. You find ways around obstacles that others cannot even see. The Wanderer told my mother that humanity's greatest strength is not your technology or your intelligence, but your stubborn refusal to give up." Daesung nodded slowly. "Perhaps fresh eyes will see what ancient wisdom has missed. We place our hopes in your young species, though the task before you seems impossible even to us." As if responding to their conversation, the dark patches on Mirai's scales pulsed more violently. Her breathing became more labored and the air around her began to shimmer with unstable energy. "She's getting worse," Dr. Lee said urgently. "Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it soon." Ji-won looked around the chamber at the assembled dragons, then at her human colleagues. The weight of an entire civilization's hopes rested on their shoulders. An ancient being who had witnessed the birth of stars. "I am Daesung," he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "I speak for the Council of Elders in this dark time. Young Hanul has told us of your willingness to attempt what others have called impossible. We are grateful, though I fear hope may be a luxury we can no longer afford." Dr. Ji-won Kim spent the next 6 hours studying every piece of data the dragons had collected about Mirai's condition. The information filled dozens of crystal storage devices that Elder Myungsu had provided. Each crystal contained detailed scans, treatment attempts, and analysis from the 17 different civilizations that had tried to help. She sat in a quiet chamber near the top of the crystal tower, surrounded by floating displays of alien medical data. The dragons had given her translation devices that could convert their scientific language into terms humans could understand. But even with the translation help, much of the information was beyond anything in human medical knowledge. Dr. Salman Lee worked beside her, comparing the alien data with readings from her own scanners. "This is incredible," she said, pointing to a display showing Mirai's cellular structure. "Look at how complex her biology is. Each cell exists in at least 4 dimensions simultaneously." "That's what makes the corruption so dangerous," Ji-won replied, studying another display. "The dark energy isn't just attacking her physical body. It's attacking the quantum foundations that let her exist across multiple dimensions." Engineer Taehyun Choi entered the chamber carrying a strange device that looked like a cross between a computer and a piece of art. "The dragons gave me access to their city's main analysis system," he said. "The processing power is beyond anything we have on our ship." Captain Minho Park joined them, looking tired but determined. "What have you learned so far?" Ji-won gestured to the floating displays around them. Every civilization that tried to help made the same basic assumption. They all focused on trying to remove or neutralize the dark energy corruption. "That seems logical," the captain said. "Yes, but look at this." Ji-won manipulated one of the displays to show a detailed scan of the corrupted areas. Every time someone tried to remove the dark energy, it fought back harder. The more aggressive the treatment, the faster it spread. Dr. Lee nodded agreement. "It's like the corruption learns from each attack and develops defenses. The crystalline surgeons of Vega actually made it worse by trying to cut out the damaged areas." Taehyun was studying the energy patterns on his borrowed device. "The dark energy itself isn't evil or malicious. It's just following different physical laws than the matter in our universe. When the 2 types of matter try to exist in the same space, they cancel each other out." "Exactly," Ji-won said, feeling excitement building in her chest. "Everyone has been treating this like a disease that needs to be cured." "But what if we're looking at it wrong?" The others stared at her with confused expressions. "Think about it," she continued. "Dark energy is what drives the expansion of the universe. It's not inherently destructive. It's actually a creative force. The problem isn't the energy itself, but how it's interacting with Mirai's biology." Captain Park frowned. "What are you suggesting?" What if instead of fighting the dark energy, we teach Mirai's body to work with it? Instead of trying to remove it, we help her integrate it into her natural processes. Dr. Lee's eyes widened. That's completely theoretical. We'd be rewriting the fundamental nature of a living being at the quantum level. Humans excel at the impossible because we don't accept that anything is truly impossible. Ji-won quoted Hanul's earlier words. The dragons have lived for thousands of years, but sometimes the solution requires a completely different perspective. Taehyun was already running calculations on the dragon device. The energy requirements would be enormous. We'd need to create some kind of resonance field that could guide the dark energy into productive patterns instead of destructive ones. And we'd need Mirai's own life force to accept the changes. Dr. Lee added. She's unconscious. How could she participate in her own healing? Before anyone could answer, Hanul entered the chamber. The small dragon had been spending most of his time with his mother, but he looked exhausted and worried. I may have an answer to that question, he said quietly. There is something called the deep communion. It is an ancient technique that allows one consciousness to merge temporarily with another. You mean telepathy? Asked Captain Park. More than that, Hanul replied. In deep communion, two minds become one. I could maintain contact with my mother's consciousness during any procedure, helping to guide her awareness and will. Ji-won felt her heart racing with possibility. That could work. If you can help her understand what we're trying to do, her own life force might accept the integration instead of fighting it. It's incredibly dangerous, Dr. Lee warned. If something goes wrong during the procedure, both of you could be lost. Hanul's scales brightened with determination. My mother would risk everything for any of her children. I can do no less for her. Elder Daesung appeared in the doorway, his bronze scales reflecting the light from the data displays. I have been monitoring your progress. This approach you suggest is unlike anything we have considered. Sometimes the best solutions come from outside perspectives, Ji-won replied. The ancient ones have incredible wisdom, but you've been thinking about this problem in the same way for months. We're bringing fresh ideas. What would such a procedure require? Daesung asked. Taehyun looked up from his calculations. First, we'd need to map the exact pattern of corruption throughout Mirai's entire body. Not just where it is, but how it's spreading and why. Then we'd need to create a resonance field that could guide the dark energy into harmony with her biological processes, Dr. Lee continued. The field would have to be incredibly precise, adjusting to her body's responses in real time. And finally, Ji-won added, we'd need Hanul to maintain deep communion with his mother throughout the entire process, helping her consciousness accept and integrate the changes. Elder Daesung was quiet for a long moment, considering everything they had said. This plan requires a level of cooperation between human technology and ancient one abilities that has never been attempted before. The best solutions often do, Captain Park said firmly. Our species excel when we work together toward a common goal. How long would you need to prepare? Daesung asked. Taehyun was still running calculations. To build the resonance field generator using both human and dragon technology, probably 18 hours, maybe 20. We don't have 20 hours, Hanul said urgently. My mother's condition is worsening rapidly. I can feel her life force growing weaker through our family bond. Dr. Lee checked her medical scanner. The latest readings show the corruption has spread to cover 35% of her body. At this rate, she has maybe 12 hours before the damage becomes irreversible. Then we work faster, Ji-won said with determination. We'll need help from your city's engineers to integrate our technology with yours. Elder Daesung nodded slowly. I will speak with the Council of Elders. This approach is so different from what we have tried before that some may resist it, but I believe you offer our only remaining hope. As the Elder Dragon left to address the Council, Communications Officer Hyewon Nam's voice came through their communicators. All senior staff, please return to the ship immediately. We're receiving strange energy readings from deep space. Captain Park frowned. What kind of readings? It appears to be another dark energy storm, Captain. And it's heading directly toward this location. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They were running out of time in more ways than one. Not only was Mirai dying, but another storm like the one that had caused her condition was approaching the Dragon City. How long until it arrives? Ji-won asked. At current speed, approximately 10 hours, Hyewon replied. Hanul's scales turned pale with fear. If another dark energy storm hits while my mother is in this weakened state, it will destroy her completely. And the city's protective barriers may not be strong enough to shield us. Taehyun was already gathering up the dragon technology. Then we don't have a choice. We have to attempt the procedure now before the storm arrives. With only 10 hours to prepare? Dr. Lee asked in disbelief. It's not ideal, Ji-won admitted, but it's what we have. Sometimes you have to work with impossible deadlines to achieve impossible things. Captain Park stood up, his expression grim but determined. All right, people. We have 10 hours to save a dragon, protect a city, and prove that humans really can make the impossible possible. Let's get to work. As they rushed to begin preparations for the most ambitious medical procedure ever attempted, none of them could ignore the irony. They were racing against time to save a being from dark energy corruption, while another dark energy storm approached. Success would require not just medical skill and technological innovation, but the kind of stubborn determination that had carried humanity from caves to the stars. The dragon scale in Dr. Lee's kit pulsed brighter than ever, as if responding to their desperate urgency. Hope was still alive, but time was running out fast. The next 8 hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Dr. Ji-won Kim had never worked so hard or so fast in her entire life. The Chamber of Eternal Light had been transformed into something between a medical bay and an engineering workshop. Human technology mixed with dragon science in ways that should have been impossible. Engineer Taehyun Choi worked alongside 3 dragon engineers to build the resonance field generator. The device looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Crystalline structures from dragon technology held human quantum processors. Streams of liquid light connected components that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The field harmonics are stabilizing, announced Kunho, one of the dragon engineers. His scales were deep blue with silver patterns that changed as he concentrated. But we need more power than our city can provide. What about our ship's power core? Suggested Captain Minho Park. We could run a direct line from the Harmony's edge. Taehyun shook his head. Even combined, it won't be enough. This procedure requires more energy than anything we've ever attempted. Elder Daesung, who had been watching the preparations with growing amazement, stepped forward. Perhaps we can help with that. The city itself is powered by controlled starlight. We could tap directly into that source. Controlled starlight? Dr. Somin Lee looked up from her medical preparations. How is that possible? We capture the nuclear fire from young stars and compress it into stable energy crystals, explained Myung-soo, the keeper of healing arts. One crystal contains enough power to run your ship for 100 years. Communications officer Haiwan Nam's voice crackled through their devices. 7 hours until the storm arrives. I'm also detecting increased energy fluctuations from Mirai. Her condition is deteriorating faster. Ji-won felt her stomach tighten with worry. Everything had to be perfect, and they were running out of time fast. She looked over at Hanul, who sat quietly beside his mother's great head. The small dragon had been preparing for the deep communion ritual, meditation techniques that would allow him to merge his consciousness with Mirai's. How are you feeling? She asked him gently. Hanul's scales were pale but steady. Frightened, he admitted. The deep communion is dangerous even under normal circumstances. If I lose myself in my mother's consciousness, I may never find my way back. You don't have to do this, Captain Park said. We could try the procedure without the mental link. No, Hanul said firmly. Without my guidance, my mother's life force will fight the changes. She needs to understand what is happening and choose to accept it. I am the only one who can help her make that choice. Dr. Lee finished calibrating her medical monitors. I've never seen readings like these. Mirai's biology is so complex that half my equipment doesn't even know what to measure. That's why we need the dragon healers working with us, Ji-won replied. Myung-soo understands her physiology better than anyone. The ancient healer dragon nodded gravely. I have tended Mirai for 3,000 years. I know every rhythm of her life force, every pattern of her breathing. If anyone can detect problems during the procedure, it will be me. Taehyun called out from across the chamber. Resonance field generator is online. But I have to warn everyone, this is completely experimental. We have no idea what might happen when we activate it. We know what will happen if we don't try, Ji-won said quietly. Mirai dies, and with her, knowledge that has existed since the beginning of time. Elder Daesung approached them with a device that looked like a small sun contained in crystal. The power core is ready. This contains enough concentrated starlight to power your procedure, but once we begin, there will be no stopping. The energy release is too great to interrupt safely. How long will the procedure take? Asked Captain Park. If everything goes perfectly, about 4 hours, Dr. Lee replied. But given how complex this is, it could take much longer. Hyewon's voice came through again. 6 hours until storm arrival. And I'm detecting something else. Long-range sensors show 3 dragon cities changing course to head this way. Other ancient ones are coming, Hanul explained. Word of your attempt has spread through the celestial paths. If my mother dies, they want to be here for the farewell ceremony. And if she lives? Jiwon asked. Hanul's eyes brightened for the first time in hours. Then they want to witness the miracle that saved the last great Skyweaver. The weight of that responsibility settled on everyone's shoulders. They weren't just trying to save one life. They were trying to preserve something precious for an entire civilization. All systems are ready, Taehyun announced. Resonance field generator is stable, power cores are charged, and all monitoring equipment is active. Dr. Lee took her position at the medical control station. Biological monitors are online. I'm tracking every life sign we can detect. Myung-soo settled himself beside Mirai's massive form, his ancient eyes focused on readings that only dragon healers could interpret. Her life patterns are as ready as they can be. But she grows weaker with each passing moment. Jiwon looked around the chamber at the incredible team they had assembled, humans and dragons working together, combining technologies and abilities that had never been joined before. It should have been impossible, but here they were, about to attempt something that no one had ever imagined. Hanul, she said gently, are you ready? The small dragon took a deep breath and positioned himself carefully on his mother's great head. I am ready. But I want you all to know if something goes wrong, if I am lost in the deep communion, do not risk yourselves trying to save me. Save my mother. That is what matters. Nothing is going to go wrong, Captain Park said firmly. We don't leave anyone behind. That's what humans do. Hanul smiled. The first genuine smile any of them had seen from him since his arrival. Perhaps that is why the universe brought you to us. Sometimes the old ways need new hope. He closed his eyes and began the ancient meditation that would allow his consciousness to merge with his mother's. The air around them started to shimmer with strange energies as the deep communion began. Mental link establishing, Myung-soo reported, watching patterns of light flow between mother and son. He is entering her consciousness now. Jiwon felt her heart pounding as she prepared to activate the resonance field generator. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. The lives of 2 ancient ones, the future of dragon civilization, and the approaching dark energy storm all hung in the balance. Beginning procedure in 10 seconds, she announced. Everyone ready? The chamber filled with tense silence as the countdown began. Outside, 3 dragon cities raced through space to witness either a miracle or a tragedy. The dark energy storm continued its approach, carrying the same destructive force that had nearly killed Mirai in the first place. 5 seconds. Jiwon counted. 4, 3, 2, 1. Activating resonance field now. The chamber exploded with light as the most ambitious medical procedure in galactic history began. The moment Dr. Jiwon Kim activated the resonance field generator, the chamber of eternal light became something beyond description. Waves of energy flowed through the air like visible music, and reality itself seemed to bend and flex around Mirai's massive form. The first thing that happened was beautiful. The dark patches on the great Skyweaver's scales began to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat, instead of the chaotic patterns they had shown before. The alien dark energy was responding to the resonance field, slowly beginning to synchronize with her natural biological processes. Initial response is positive, Dr. Somin Lee reported from her medical station. The corruption is stabilizing in sectors 1 through 7. But 30 minutes into the procedure, everything started going wrong. Energy cascade building in Sector 12. Engineer Taehyun Choi called out, his voice tight with alarm. The resonance field is destabilizing. On the monitoring displays, they could see one of the larger corrupted areas beginning to expand rapidly. Instead of harmonizing with Mirai's biology, the dark energy was fighting back, trying to maintain its chaotic destructive pattern. The corruption is learning, Elder Myung-soo said grimly. It adapts to our attempts to control it, just as it did with the other healers. Jiwan felt panic rising in her chest but forced herself to stay calm. This was the moment that would determine success or failure. Hanel, can you reach your mother? We need her conscious will to help us. Through their deep communion link, Hanel was experiencing his mother's consciousness directly. His small body trembled with effort as he tried to guide her awareness through the storm of conflicting energies. She is here, he said, his voice taking on a strange echo as he spoke from the space between two minds. But the pain is overwhelming. The dark energy feels like fire and ice at the same time. She wants to let go, to stop fighting. Tell her not to give up, Captain Minho Park said urgently. Tell her that humans refuse to accept defeat, and the ancient ones should too. Through their mental link, Hanul shared not just words but the full emotional impact of human determination. The stubborn refusal to quit that had carried their species from primitive hunters to star travelers. The absolute conviction that any problem could be solved if you just kept trying. Mireille's vital signs strengthened in response. Her ancient will reasserted itself against the chaotic forces trying to tear her apart. Her life force is fighting back, Dr. Lee announced with relief. But we still have the energy cascade in Sector 12. Taehyun's fingers flew over the control systems, adjusting field parameters in real time. I'm compensating for the resistance, but the power requirements are increasing beyond our calculations. How much power do we have left? Jiwan asked. At this rate, maybe 2 more hours before the Starlight cores are exhausted. Communications Officer Heewon Nam's voice crackled through their devices. 4 hours until storm arrival. The other dragon cities have reached the outer system and are maintaining position at a safe distance. Jiwan realized they were caught in a terrible race. The procedure was taking longer than expected. They were running out of power, and a destructive storm was approaching that could destroy everything they were trying to save. We need to speed this up, she decided. Increase the resonance field intensity by 20%. That's beyond safe parameters, Taehyun warned. If the field becomes unstable, it could kill both Mirai and Hanul. And if we don't finish before the power runs out or the storm arrives, they die anyway, Jiwan replied. Sometimes you have to risk everything to save everything. Elder Daesung, who had been watching the procedure with growing amazement, stepped forward. There may be another option. The city has emergency power reserves that we have never used. They were intended to save us if our main power systems failed. How much extra time would that give us? Captain Park asked. Perhaps 1 additional hour. But if we use the emergency reserves and fail, the city will be defenseless against the approaching storm. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the resonance field and the steady beeping of medical monitors. The decision would affect not just Mireille and Hanul, but the lives of 200 ancient ones living in the city. It was Hanul who made the choice. Speaking through his deep communion link with his mother, his voice carried the authority of the great Sky Weaver herself. Use the emergency power, he said. My mother says that a city exists to protect its people, not the other way around. If saving her life costs us our defenses, then that is a risk worth taking. The Council of Elders must approve such a decision, Daesung protested. I speak with Mireille's voice, Hanul replied, his small form glowing with transferred power from his mother. As the last great Sky Weaver, her word carries the authority of the ancient laws. Use the emergency power. Daesung bowed his great head respectfully. It will be done. The next 2 hours were the most intense of Jiwan's life. Working with emergency power flowing through the systems, they continued the delicate process of guiding dark energy into harmony with Mireille's biology. Each corrupted area had to be individually addressed, the chaotic patterns carefully transformed into productive ones. Sector 15 is stabilizing, Dr. Lee reported. Corruption in sectors 8 through 11 is now fully integrated. Field harmonics are holding steady, Taehyun added. But we're using power faster than I calculated. Emergency reserves will last maybe 40 more minutes. Through it all, Hanul maintained his connection with his mother's consciousness, helping her understand and accept the fundamental changes happening to her body. The process was exhausting for both of them, but their combined will provided the guidance necessary for success. 2 hours until storm arrival, Hyewan announced. The other dragon cities are requesting updates on the procedure. Tell them we're not giving up, Captain Park replied. Whatever happens, we see this through to the end. With 30 minutes of power remaining, they reached the final phase of the procedure. The last corrupted areas were the largest and most resistant. concentrated around Mirai's heart and the base of her brain. These were the regions that controlled her most vital functions. This is the most dangerous part, Myung-soo warned. If we lose control of the field while working on these areas, the cascade failure could destroy her completely. Then we don't lose control, Ji-won said with grim determination. Taehyun, give me everything we have left. Full power to the resonance field. That will drain the emergency. Reserves in 15 minutes, he warned. Then, we finish this in 15 minutes, the chamber filled with blinding light as every available energy source poured into the resonance field. Mirai's massive form was surrounded by streams of pure power that danced and flowed like living things. For 10 terrifying minutes, everything hung in balance. The dark energy fought back with desperate strength, trying to maintain its chaotic hold on the great Sky Weaver's heart and mind. But guided by the combined will of mother and son, and supported by the most advanced technology two civilizations could create, the corruption finally began to yield. It's working, Dr. Lee breathed. The last corrupted areas are stabilizing. Field harmonics are perfect, Taehyun reported. The dark energy is fully integrated with her biological processes. And then, just as the emergency power reserves reached their absolute limit, something miraculous happened. The resonance field no longer needed external power. Mirai's own life force had learned to maintain the harmony between normal matter and dark energy. She had become something new, something that had never existed before. Power down the external field, Ji-won ordered. Let's see if she can maintain the integration on her own. The artificial resonance field faded, but the harmony continued. Mirai's scales now showed no trace of the dark corruption. Instead, they shimmered with new colors that seemed to contain the depths of space itself. Slowly, majestically, the great Sky Weaver opened her eyes. They were different now. Still the deep blue of neutron stars, but shot through with veins of silver that pulsed with dark energy. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made the entire chamber resonate. My children, she said, looking first at Hanul, then at the exhausted human team. You have given me more than life. You have shown me a new way to exist in harmony with forces I thought could only destroy. Hanul collapsed with exhaustion, but remained conscious, his scales bright with joy and relief. Mother, you're alive. You're really alive. Mirai's great head turned toward the humans, and Ji-won felt the weight of ancient wisdom in that gaze. The young species has taught the Ancient One new truths. You have transformed the impossible into the inevitable through determination and courage. Outside the chamber, alarms began sounding throughout the city. The dark energy storm had arrived. The dark energy storm hit the wandering garden like a tsunami of chaos and destruction. But something incredible happened that no one had expected. Instead of being damaged by the storm, Mirai began to absorb its power. Dr. Ji-won Kim watched in amazement as the great Sky Weaver rose from her crystalline bed with fluid grace. Where her feet touched the chamber floor, small flowers of pure light bloomed spontaneously. The dark energy that had nearly killed her was now part of who she was. The storm cannot harm me now, Mirai said, her voice filled with wonder. I can perceive and navigate cosmic forces that were previously beyond even Ancient One understanding. In healing me, you have opened new pathways for both our species to explore. Through the chamber's crystal walls, they could see the storm raging around the city's protective barriers. But instead of trying to penetrate those barriers, the chaotic energy seemed drawn to Mirai herself. She was acting like a lightning rod, channeling the destructive force into harmless patterns. Elder Daisung entered the chamber, his bronze scales bright with amazement. Mirai, you are walking. The healers said this was impossible. Many things we thought impossible have proven to be merely difficult, the great Sky Weaver replied. These young humans have taught us that the barriers between ways of thinking are not walls, but bridges waiting to be built. Captain Minho Park stepped forward and bowed respectfully. We're honored to have been able to help. But I have to ask, what happens now? You're different than you were before. Mirai's great head tilted thoughtfully. The dark energy that nearly destroyed me has become part of my essential nature. I can now perceive cosmic structures that were invisible before. I can navigate space-time currents that the Ancient Ones never knew existed. Dr. Soman Lee was practically vibrating with scientific excitement. The medical implications alone are staggering. If we can understand how the integration process works, We could potentially help other beings damaged by dark energy exposure. The knowledge will be shared freely, Mirai said gently. Information hoarded becomes stagnant. Information shared grows into wisdom. This is a gift my people will offer to humanity in recognition of what you have accomplished here. Engineer Taihyun Choi was monitoring the storm's progress on his instruments. The energy readings are unlike anything I've ever seen. The storm should be tearing the city apart, but instead it's being absorbed and redirected. Mirai is transforming the chaos into order, explained Elder Myung-soo with awe in his voice. She has become a living bridge between different types of cosmic energy. This ability could revolutionize how we understand the universe itself. Through their communication devices, Hyewon Nam's voice carried news from outside. Captain, the 3 dragon cities that came to witness the procedure are requesting permission to approach. They want to see the miracle for themselves. Grant permission, Captain Park replied, and send a message to all ships in the area. The storm is being contained, but everyone should maintain safe distances until it fully dissipates. As the hours passed, dragons from across the galaxy began arriving to witness what had happened. The news spread rapidly through the celestial path networks. The impossible healing had become legendary before it was even complete. Hanyul, exhausted but happier than Jiwon had ever seen him, had curled up near his mother's feet. The deep communion had drained him completely, but the joy in his ancient eyes made every moment of risk worthwhile. How do you feel? Jiwon asked him gently. Like I have learned the greatest lesson any being can master, he replied sleepily. True strength comes not from standing alone, but from knowing when to ask for help and whom to trust with your greatest vulnerabilities. Dr. Lee was reviewing the medical data from the procedure with growing excitement. The integration process created entirely new cellular structures. Mirai's biology now exists in at least 6 dimensions simultaneously. The applications for advanced medicine are limitless. More importantly, said Mirai, overhearing the conversation, the process has shown that cooperation between species can achieve things that neither could accomplish alone. Your human ingenuity combined with our ancient knowledge has created something genuinely new. Elder Daesung approached them with a formal expression. The Council of Elders has asked me to extend an invitation to humanity. We would like to establish permanent cultural and scientific exchange programs. Your perspectives have proven invaluable, Captain Park smiled. We would be honored. But I have to warn you, humans have a tendency to ask a lot of questions and challenge established ways of thinking. That is exactly what we need, Mirai replied, with what sounded remarkably like laughter. The ancient ones have grown perhaps too comfortable with our accumulated wisdom. Fresh perspectives will help us continue growing instead of becoming stagnant. As the dark energy storm finally dissipated completely, absorbed and transformed by Mirai's new abilities, the viewing screens showed an incredible sight. Dozens of dragon cities had gathered from across the galaxy, their crystalline structures glittering like jewels against the cosmic backdrop. They came expecting to witness a funeral, Hanul observed, now more alert after resting. Instead, they are witnessing the birth of something entirely new. Communications began flooding in from across known space. The news of the impossible healing was spreading to every civilized world. Other species that had suffered dark energy damage were asking for help. Scientists were requesting access to the medical data. Philosophers were debating the implications of successful interspecies cooperation. I think we may have started something bigger than we realized, Jiwon said, watching the flood of incoming messages. The best solutions often do, replied Mirai. What began as a desperate attempt to save one life has become a bridge between civilizations. This is how the universe grows and learns. 3 days later, as the Harmony's Edge prepared to depart the Wandering Garden, Jiwon stood at the observation deck watching the impossible city recede into cosmic distance. They were carrying with them not just new knowledge and technology, but something far more valuable. They had proven that the word impossible was just a challenge waiting to be overcome. They had shown that cooperation between different ways of thinking could achieve miracles. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that asking for help was not a sign of weakness, but a recognition of the strength that comes from community. Captain Park joined her at the viewport. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about what Mirai said about possibility and inevitability, Jiwon replied. A week ago, saving a dying dragon with dark energy manipulation would have been pure fantasy. Today it's just another entry in our mission logs. And tomorrow? Jiwan smiled, watching as distant stars beckoned with infinite promise. Tomorrow we'll find new impossibilities to make inevitable. That's what humans do, after all. Behind them, in the medical bay, Hanul was already planning his next adventure, secure in the knowledge that his mother would be there to see it. The dragon scale that had served as proof of his sincerity continued to glow with warm light, now a symbol of friendship between species rather than a desperate oath. In the deepest reaches of space, ancient beings who had never given humanity much thought began to reconsider their assumptions about the potential of a species that refused to accept the word impossible. News of the healing spread through networks of civilized worlds, carried by the same celestial paths that Mirai and her kind protected. The universe, it seemed, was about to become a much more interesting place. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that humans had always known, but had now shared with the galaxy. When faced with the impossible, the only reasonable response is to roll up your sleeves and get to work. The galaxy would never be the same, and that, everyone agreed, was exactly as it should be. The story of the little dragon who begged humans to save his mother had become the story of how two civilizations learned that the greatest strength comes not from what you know, but from whom you choose to trust when everything seems hopeless. And in that lesson, both species found something precious: the knowledge that they were not alone in their struggles, and that the impossible was just another word for opportunity.